All right, guys, it's 12:30 in the morning, and I have not packed yet for my trip. But here you go. Here's your walkthrough of the solution for our implementation of interfaces. So during class yesterday, which was this morning, we set up the bank account so that it implements our measurable interface. And the measurable interface, all it does is it declares itself to be public, and then it says there's a method to this interface that returns a double. It's called getMeasure. And so what that means is any class that wants to make use of this interface has to have a method called getMeasure, and that method has to return a double value. That's the only rule. It's got to have a method called getMeasure, and that method has to return a double. So in bank account, we are signing up to use that interface, and so that means that we have to have that method. So we put that method in. It's right here. It returns a double. It's called getMeasure. What it does is totally up to us. The contract says it has to return a double, and it has to be named getMeasure. So in the case of a bank account, all we need to return is the balance. That's what we want to use to sort our bank accounts by average or to find the maximum. The bank account balance is the important number for us. So all we have to do is return the balance. You could do anything in there. You could add up a bunch of numbers and figure out some complicated number to return. The only rule is it's got to be a double. Okay? So what that means is any bank account object can also be considered a measurable object because it implements measurable. So if the computer looks at a bank account object, it might look at it as a bank account, or it might look at it as a measurable, depending on the context. So in our tester class, here's how we would use it. We set up 3 bank accounts here: my account, your account, and their account. And they have different account numbers and different initial balances. So we want to use our data set, which we set up here, data set my data equals new data set. We want this data set to calculate the average balances and also find the maximum balance in here. So we have to add these accounts to the data set. Now, data sets don't know anything about bank accounts. If we look at the data set class here, there's nothing in here that describes a bank account or how to interact with a bank account. It does know how to use measurable objects. And so the add method needs to see a measurable object. Okay? So in our tester class, when we say mydata.add, as long as the object coming in is a measurable object, uses that interface, it's legal. So bank accounts count because they're measurable objects. So we add my account, we add your account, we add their account. So to find out, or to print out the average, we would say system.out.println, and we would say mydata.getAverage. Okay, so the mydata object calls its getAverage method, and it jumps inside here, and it goes down to the getAverage. And every time we added one of those bank account objects, the balance number was being used to increase the sum, and then each time we added one, the count went up. So the getAverage method just figures out the count and divides the sum by the count. So it adds up all the balances, divides it by however many bank accounts we had total. And so that's a simple one. It just returns a double, so we can print that. So that's all there is for that one. Now for the maximum method, getMaximum is a little bit different because getMaximum doesn't return a double. It returns a measurable object. Okay, so we look back at our data set. Public, and then the return type is measurable, and the name is getMaximum. And it returns the maximum value. And remember, the change that we made in our variables. The sum is a double, the count is an int, but the maximum is a measurable object. It's not a simple primitive value. And so that's why we also had to comment out this line here, because we can't set an object to 0. Okay. So again, we need to be ready to receive a measurable object. This method runs and it spits back a measurable object. Every time that we add one of those bank accounts in there, it checks the balance and sees if it's greater than the maximum's current measure value. And so if it is, then we set maximum to X, which is whatever bank account just came in. So it may sound confusing, but you'll get used to it. It says measurable, but the way we're using it, X is actually a bank account that's coming in. And so bank account gets put in a maximum. And so that's what we're looking for. So in tester, what we need to do is create a measurable object. So measurable, and I'll call it the max equals my data dot get maximum. Okay, and then when we print it, we say system dot out dot print line, and we say the max dot get measure. So I'll run that, and actually I ran it before, but the numbers are right there. That is the average, and 900 was the maximum value that we saw. And again, the cool thing here is data sets don't know anything about bank accounts, but they do know about measurables. So as long as we tell our bank accounts that they need to consider themselves measurables and subscribe to that interface, they will work in this method. So let's do that whole thing again with the coin class. So I'm going to go to the coin class here, and we need to say that the coin class implements measurable. And again, if we're going to do that, we have to provide a method that returns a double that's called getMeasure. So I'll go down here after the constructor, and we'll make some space right here, and we'll say public double getMeasure. All right, in this case, with a coin, the important number that you would want to sort your coins by or find the average is the value. And that's a double, so that'll work. So all we need to do here is return value. Okay, so then let's go to our tester class, and we'll do this. We'll say coin, and we'll say penny1 equals new coin, and its value is 0.01, and its name is penny. Penny2 equals new coin, 0.01 penny. I'm just representing a collection of coins, 2 pennies, a dime, and a quarter. Okay, we have 4 coins, and since they all use the measurable interface, we can use them with our data set. When the data set looks at these, it won't see coins, it'll see measurables that have a value that matches the penny value or the dime value or the quarter value. So let's create a new data set. Data set my coins equals new data set. My coins.add penny1, coins.add penny2. And remember, each time we add, it's examining that penny, finding its value using the getMeasure method, and increasing the sum of the data. It's adding up all the values of all the coins in the data set. And it's also keeping track of how many we've added because it uses the count variable. So far there's 2, and they're both worth 0.01, so that's 0.02 total. And we add our dime, and we add our quarter. Okay, so the data is all there. We can print out the average just like we did before. System.out.println coins.getAverage. And then here, to print out the maximum, we need to create a measurable object. We already have one called the max. We can just reuse that. It doesn't matter that there's currently a bank account in there. It's just a measurable object. So we'll say the max equals my coins.getMaximum. And then we can print that out. System.out.println coins, the max.getMeasure. Okay, we'll run that. And this is the bank accounts, and here is the coins. So apparently our average is 9.25 cents, and the maximum value that came in was 0.25. Perfect. So we created coins, we created bank accounts, and we're able to use the data set to find out information about those. We don't have to go into data set and add a special method for how to deal with bank accounts, or a special method on how to deal with coins. So what that means is data set is very reusable. It's multi-purpose. Anytime we want to be able to find the average of a collection of things, we just need to make that new class implement our interface. So if you had a class that represented NFL players and had all their statistics, and you wanted to sort them by the value of their contracts with their teams, all you do is tell the NFL player class that it implements the measurable interface, and then write in that method that returns a double, and it's called getMeasure. And inside of that method, we would take a look at the value of their contract, like their dollars per year, and we would just return that number as a double. And as soon as we do that, dataset can bring in NFL players, add as many as you want, find the average of their contracts, find the maximum contract. So that's how interfaces work, and it's a really powerful tool. So there should be instructions on your Google Classroom page for what to do next.